Thank you so much, Emma, for joining us on Talking Allergies today.
Thank you for having me.
Very much appreciate you coming on. What we've done is a little bit of an intro for you, but if you would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Emma Warner. I'm the Principal Psychologist at the Allergy Support Hub, and I'm also a mother of a child with severe food allergies.
Thank you so much for joining. When did you first learn that your child had allergies?
Yeah, so Sam's almost 12 now, but we actually found out that he was allergic to dairy initially when he was about 7 months old. He was exclusively breastfed, and I was getting ready to be the bridesmaid for a friend's wedding. So I thought I would give him some formula to try at home to kind of get me through the day and the job of being a bridesmaid. And unfortunately, he started to have a reaction when I gave him the formula at home. Yeah, so 7 months of age for the dairy allergy, and then not long after that, we found out that he had an egg allergy as well.
That definitely snowballed from the wedding to go through.
Yeah, it did. So the dairy and the egg allergy we found out under 12 months, and then by 14 months, he also had a number of nut allergies as well.
How did your life change day to day from learning from the first allergy to learning about all the other allergies that they had?
Yeah, look, it was a huge adjustment. Sam was my firstborn, so I was a first-time mum. After we learnt about the dairy allergy, we did a lot of adjustment in the household. We took dairy completely out of the house. We stopped eating dairy ourselves. And also then with the egg, we stopped eating that as well, mainly because he was so small and it was hard to kind of manage kind of an infant and eating kind of around them. So we just decided that we would kind of go vegan but still have meat. Lots of adjustment around what we were now feeding him as well. So by 12 months, he had to be on soy milk. He couldn't obviously go to milk products. Just even like going shopping, it was so tricky because now we're just having to read food labels, and particularly with the dairy and egg, it's so tricky. There's so many products with that in it. So just your regular shop changed instantly. So food prep and shopping were probably the two biggest adjustments, and then our diet as well, although we shifted that over time.
As a psychologist specialising in allergies and a mum of a child with allergies, you've got a unique perspective on allergy life and allergy lives. Can you begin by telling us a little bit about Allergy Support Hub and what you provide?
Yeah, so the Allergy Support Hub is Perth-based. We've been running for almost 5 years now. Primarily, we have two kind of main functions. We have a family support service side where we offer hub appointments to the community. We offer workshops and seminars to families. In the past, we've done a couple of community events which have been really successful, but based upon funding. And then that we've also got the psychological services, and so that addresses or provides targeted kind of counselling and psychological intervention for not only people with food allergies themselves, but also their primary caregiver and their family members as well. So, yeah, two parts to it.
Touching on having allergies, it doesn't obviously just affect the person itself. It's a really big aspect of the person that gives them care and their caregivers. So it's lovely that you provide those services to them as well.
Yeah, it's really essential, and that's primarily why we went into it. We wanted to provide support to the primary caregiver, which is usually the mum, and mainly due to the reasons that I said before about myself, which was that it's such a huge adjustment and can take quite a toll and a burden on that individual. And so ensuring that a mother doesn't have the associated anxiety that then flows down to the child is really important.
When did you start Allergy Support Hub?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Pretty much the idea of supporting families came to me almost immediately after Sam's diagnosis. I didn't want kind of any mum to go through what I did without appropriate support. And so I started doing quite a lot of actually literature research. I've been a psych for a really long time, and so it kind of made sense to me that I would try and find an avenue to provide support to other mums going through what I did. So I started out in private practice, kind of trying to find that niche and provide that support. But it wasn't until I did a local talk at a Rotary Club in Cambridge here in Perth to mums of children with food allergies. And Monique, who you'll be interviewing next week, she came to the talk and she approached me at the end and she said, "Oh, look, I'm not really here to hear the content as such. I actually wanted to meet you." And so, yeah, long story short, we connected and we were talking a lot about what we were trying to achieve. She was a psych as well. And we started meeting quite regularly. We wanted to start maybe just some community events and some workshops, free of course, to the community. And then kind of one night after probably 4 months of talking, we decided that we would just start a charity, as you do. And so pretty much it's snowballed since then. And yeah, as I said, we've been going for 5 years quite successfully.
Thank you for all of the work that you've done over those 5 years for people with living with allergies and for their families. It's really lovely. What are the challenges that you've experienced with people with allergies?
In terms of what do they face for challenges? Yeah. So look, what we address at the hub is usually around adjustment. So adjustment to integrating the food allergy into your day to day, because it is a huge adjustment depending on how many allergies and also the type of allergy that a child or an adult might have. And so, yeah, so we discuss adjustment, particularly with newly diagnosed families, and then as time goes on for people, depending on if they've had a severe allergic reaction, we address food allergy anxiety. Yeah.
Would you mind describing or discussing what allergy anxiety is?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's really important for people to hear that when you have a food allergy, vigilance is really important. So we talk a lot at the hub about what vigilance is, and vigilance is basically a low level amount of anxiety that is necessary in order to keep you safe. So we do need to read food labels, we need to ensure that we're eating safe food, we are checking ingredients, etc. So there's kind of these base behaviours that everybody needs to have in order to keep themselves safe from an allergic reaction. But food allergy anxiety kind of is where you've got those kind of restrictive behaviours, but they become more restrictive on your day-to-day life. So, for instance, you might be over-checking packaging, or you're really restricting your diet to things that you're not actually allergic to, and you just think that you might have an allergic reaction. And in addition to that, we start to see a quality of life impact. So people are then not also socialising or doing those kind of lived activities that they really should be doing, and they can safely. But the food allergy anxiety is kind of having restriction on their life.
You mentioned that having allergies, you have a low level of anxiety or a low level of awareness around managing allergies. How do you know when allergy anxiety is severe?
Yeah, so if we use a scale, so 0 to 10, and 10 is highly anxious and 0 is not anxious at all, we kind of tend to see that vigilance is sitting at about a 3, and it's a really fine window, and it's a hard balance. So managing your food allergies is actually a day-to-day. It's day-to-day, so you have to be doing it every day. You have to be vigilant every day to reduce your likelihood of exposure. And so we do need to have those behaviours. When it starts to kind of head up towards, your 5, 6, 7, kind of up there, that's when we're looking at it actually having an effect on your quality of life. So things that might be obvious to people are that they stop going out, or kids that would eat even like at a common restaurant, like a fast food outlet as such, might even stop doing that. So they might stop having their hot chips or something like that. That's pretty common. And so when parents start to see restrictive behaviour in their children, that's starting to become kind of food allergy anxiety that needs to be or can be addressed. And then in adults, typically what will happen is that they might stop socialising, they start to get concerned about being on their own, or even in the car driving on their own. They might not eat at the workplace, even though they can. So there's some examples.
Who is susceptible to allergy anxiety?
Yeah, look, this is a good question. I think because you need to have a mild level of it anyway to manage. And I suppose it's probably helpful for me to clarify that. Anxiety is something that everybody has. And, it will go up and down depending on what our life stresses are. But to manage a food allergy, which is severe and life-threatening, you have to kind of have this vigilance level. So potentially anyone who has a food allergy or is the primary caregiver of a child with a food allergy could have food allergy anxiety. And then obviously if you've got, so for mums that might have had a history of anxiety prior to having their child, I would say that they're more susceptible to developing food allergy anxiety.
You've touched on prior that allergy anxiety can also be felt by a mum of someone that has allergies or a carer. Does
Yeah.
it present differently between someone that has allergies and the carer?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to define, but I suppose what we would see in a mum is the fear is the same in terms of what they don't want is their child to have a severe allergic reaction. And so the fear is actually of the allergic reaction, and the same is with the kid. It just is a little bit different as such for the mum. So they might also restrict safe food, like particularly after an allergic reaction. They're worried that this food that they haven't had for a while might cause an allergic reaction, even though logically they know that actually hasn't happened. And that would be the same for a kid. So if they've had a recent allergic reaction, they can also restrict their safe food for the exact same reason, that they don't want to have an allergic reaction. Yeah. So yeah, it actually is the same.
The same cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ultimately it's the fear of an allergic reaction. So that's kind of where. So as a individual and as a parent, we're managing day to day to avoid an allergic reaction. And then the food allergy anxiety is restrictive behaviour to address the fear of a potential allergic reaction.
Can allergy anxiety worsen in different times?
Yes. So look, Yeah, great question. So initially around that newly diagnosed stage, it's quite anxiety provoking for parents and primary caregivers. What we find in individuals with food allergy is quite often what happens is a child has an initial allergic reaction when they're first diagnosed, and then the family do an incredible job to actually reduce the likelihood of them having an allergic reaction. And it's not until mostly it's a accidental exposure or a potentially new allergen where the child actually has a severe allergic reaction, and that could be at 4 years or 6 or 7. And then what we find is they're the referrals that we will get, because what's happened then, it's twofold. One, the parent is sent back to the original fear when that initially felt when the child had their first reaction, and then depending on the child's age, they are now aware of what their food allergy actually means.
Can allergy anxiety improve?
Yes, it's actually one of the most rewarding parts of the job. So it absolutely can with the right therapy.
How do you work with people to improve allergy anxiety?
Yeah, so I use two main therapies. So we use cognitive behaviour therapy, and in combination with graded exposure. Graded exposure essentially elicits a small amount of anxiety for people, but not enough that they avoid a situation. And so, for people to understand what graded exposure is, most people will be familiar with flooding, which is when an individual, for example, might be scared of spiders. So it's phobia based. And the flooding is what people have seen on TV, where the person, has to be flooded with like spiders in a box or something like that. Graded exposure is like a ladder, and so it's small steps to overcome a fear. And certainly anecdotally, for us at the hub, it's been really successful. And yeah, it's similarly used overseas to address food allergy anxiety. In young people and adults, I also teach assertiveness so that they are in a position where they're actually able to speak up about their food allergies and feel confident in social situations and in the workplace. And then I also provide psychoeducation. But in terms of addressing the anxiety, it's CBT and graded exposure.
Could you describe a little bit about those little steps
Yeah.
and sort of the
Yeah.
comfort that you would provide with
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah. So earlier I talked about the scale 0 to 10, and so kids are introduced to that even at 6 and 7. And basically, what they're taught is that, or explained to, is that anxiety sits on that scale. And 10 is, panic, and where they're likely to avoid things. And then, your lower numbers, we teach them about where vigilance sits. So if a young person, was coming to me and I thought that they had a lot of restrictive behaviour, I'd kind of first look at what kind of safe foods that they're avoiding, because that's pretty typical. And after an allergic reaction. And so what I do is I'll set up it's called a brave ladder for kids. So if you literally just imagine 0 to 10 with kind of like your rows going up. And I'll talk to them about what foods they previously were able to eat that were safe. And what we do is we assign numbers to them. So they might say that, like a cracker was a 3, but, eating a parent's curry was a 7. So what we would do is we'd go through with the parent a list of all the foods that they've been avoiding since the reaction, and then with the child, and they're very much able to do this. The reason why we use numbers is because it's actually easier to tell someone how you feel through number than it is through feeling. And kids really are able to get that quite quickly. And then, so then what we do is basically we create this ladder that then the parents take away, and it's informed by the child, and then they address that at home. And sometimes you can attach a reward to it, but it's not always necessary, and kids are quite motivated. They actually liked the food that they were eating before, but they are just worried that they're going to have an allergic reaction. And so what the ladder does is you start at the bottom and you just keep working up incrementally. But the small things that they've said at the bottom aren't going to elicit enough anxiety that they're not going to do it at all. And then the outcome is that once they've had the cracker, they don't have an allergic reaction. And so what that does is it reinforces that positive loop for them, and then they go to the next step. It's really effective.
Thank you for describing it in more detail.
It's okay.
How prevalent is allergy anxiety?
Yeah, look, that's a question that unfortunately we can't answer at the moment. There really isn't enough research in it. Some studies have kind of indicated that compared to the population of children without food allergies, it could be anywhere up to 56% of that food allergy population. Other studies have reported less. It's really, we don't have a lot of research to go on. We do know generally that anxiety is more prevalent in the population than it used to be before in terms of the general population. But I think because there needs to be that kind of low level of anxiety anyway, potentially there is a likelihood that it could be higher than the general population.
When should someone get professional help for allergy anxiety?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. I think, look, at the more anxious end, it's when people are starting to realise that it's impacting on their quality of life. So what we actually talk to a lot of families about is you can achieve a really good quality of life with a child with a food allergy and or being an adult with a food allergy. So we talk about what their quality of life looked like before their child had the food allergy, and then we try and kind of navigate how we're going to get as close to that as possible. So if you're not going out, you're not eating the foods that you once enjoyed, and you're constantly feeling like you're not okay. So either yourself or your child has started to engage in some behaviours that feel worrying. That's definitely a time to seek help. However, I suppose what Monique and I are really conscious of is that prevention is absolutely the way to go. So if you have had a recent diagnosis, to reach out so that you can actually get some skills rather than having to wait until it gets to a point where you do need kind of more medium to long term intervention.
What's the first step of getting help for allergy anxiety?
Yeah, so obviously you can go to your GP and talk to them about your concerns. You don't have to have a mental health care plan to access any psychologist, and certainly to come to us. You don't have to have a mental health care plan, but in terms of it being more affordable, that makes it easier for people. So yeah, generally your GP is your first port of call, and then they can refer you out to either us or a psychologist. Yeah.
Once they get professional help, how quickly can you see improvements in allergy anxiety?
Yeah, so this is another exciting part of what we've seen at the Hub. So if you look at, if you use the 10 mental health care plan sessions as a bit of a guide, usually, depending on the level of restriction and also the motivation of the individual, we can actually see improvement between 3 and 6 sessions, which is the first kind of part of the mental health care plan. So in that initial block, we can start to see improvement. Depending on, as I said, the severity and how long the anxiety's been going on for. By session 3, we can start the Brave ladder, and the ladder is the same for adults as well. with real improvement.
In terms of the services that you provide,
Mm-hmm.
why did you start looking at those services for the community?
Yeah, so I suppose the reason why we started was because we wanted support for any individual and family members with touched by food allergy. We didn't exclusively provide psychological intervention because not everybody needs it. We really wanted to be community based and provide almost like a just a support service that people could call, that they would be heard, that they would be validated with what they're experiencing, and get appropriate kind of social and emotional support. So we appreciate that not everybody would need counselling and psychological intervention. And so we just really wanted to be able to educate the community, the allergic or people living with food allergies, and also to provide a way for them to connect as well.
Was there a moment that you were proud of the work that you've done through Allergy Support Hub?
Yeah, look, I think it's actually been primarily the outcomes of clients for me. We've had a lot of I don't know, it's been a really positive impact for individuals and families. Mon and I have worked really hard in this space to kind of put food allergy not on the map as such, but to highlight that it actually is a bit of a silent condition that you wouldn't even know that my child has food allergies. He's a very well and physically active young person, and it is not actually until he has an allergic reaction that you see him so unwell. Yeah.
If you met someone in the beginning of their allergy journey, what would you say to them?
Yeah, look, to mums, I would say that I see you and I know it's hard, but you're already doing an amazing job because you're the best mum for your child. And I know that it might be hard to see now, but food allergy does not and will not define your child. My son is now almost 12. He plays representative basketball. He's been on a tour to Canberra with a school group. He's attended multiple school camps successfully. It doesn't define you, and you can live a really good have a really good quality of life. It's going to be okay.
Has the way that you managed his allergies or the way he managed his allergies changed over time?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the hardest things when you've got an infant with a food allergy is that because you're the primary caregiver and because of their developmental stage, you are completely responsible for it day in and day out. As your child gets older, they actually need to have a level of education about what their food allergy is, what medication they need to take. And we started that very early with Sam. He was fully aware of his food allergies and what they meant, what safe food and unsafe food was, and mainly because we feel that knowledge is power, and he needed to have a full handle on what that meant for him. And his sibling, his younger brother, was educated as well. Now that he's almost a teenager and he's transitioning to year 7, I'm sure that will come with its own challenges. As a preteen, it already has, but it's kind of points and junctures where you sit down with your child and you talk to them about eating safely and when he's on his own. So there's certainly points of transition that as a young person, kind of grows up, that it requires, an additional kind of level of education around the management of their food allergy, because ultimately they're going to manage it on their own as an adult.
What is the most common age that you see at the Allergy Support Hub?
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting question. We don't actually have an average kind of age that we see, I suppose. In primary school, mainly it's children between 6 and 8. And then the next group tend to be around that transition age, so kids that are actually transitioning from year 6 to 7, so between 11 and 13. And then the next group of kids that I usually see are that actual transition out of high school. So you're 17, 18, and then young adults at university who, could be adjusting to living out of home, living on campus. So that's kind of like the kid cohort. And then usually the adults that I see have a late onset diagnosis of food allergy or a parent.
It sounds like there's a lot of different changes and evolutions in allergy anxiety and allergies and mental health.
Yes, that is correct. So certainly that's why we're working hard to put mental health, I suppose, in that allergy space. And we've certainly worked very hard in WA to educate the allergists and immunologists about what that looks like in their patients. And we've been quite successful. We now get referrals where the allergists are actually in their referrals saying that they think that their patient is experiencing anxiety and that they'd like to get that addressed, because what we also do is actually help people overcome the parts of the allergy journey. So, for instance, many families have to engage in food challenges, which are incredibly anxiety provoking. And so I do a lot of work around that to help families actually get to the appointments so they're at least attempting it, because that potentially could have a huge positive impact on their quality of life. Yeah.
As you're based in WA, do you provide services across Australia?
Yes, we do. So in Perth, we provide, obviously have the capacity to provide face-to-face support, but because of telehealth, we're now able to provide those services all around Australia. And I would actually say that probably about 50% of my caseload are interstate clients.
That's fantastic that you can assist people across Australia.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Where can people learn more about Allergy Support Hub?
Yeah, so we have a website, allergysupporthub.com.au. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram. If you're West Australian, through our Facebook page, we actually have a closed community group. We're quite remote here in WA, and so we really wanted a platform for people in Western Australia to be able to connect with other families, and so that's a possibility for people as well.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell someone with allergies or the community with allergies, Emma?
Look, I suppose, we see you and we understand what's going on for you. Monique and I at the Hub, we're trying to do a lot with the peak body around putting mental health and psychology in that space. It's really important that you're advocating for yourself. A lot of people that I see are worried that they're going to put people out when they speak up about their food allergies. And so that's why I do a lot of assertiveness, training with the people that I see and mums. You're not putting people out. It's it's actually your life at the end of the day. And there are ways to do it though. I think being an advocate for yourself and for your child is really important. Speaking up when you feel like you need to and you have to. And I think one of the other messages too is for kids in particular, if they don't feel safe, it's okay for them not to eat something in particular, and parents really need to be kind of mindful of that their kids are kind of developing those skills over time to manage their food allergies. And so we really need to listen to them when they're not feeling okay.
Thank you so much for joining Talking Allergies today, Emma. I very much appreciate learning about your story with Sam and the allergy and allergy anxiety and how you assist with that.
Thank you so much, Grace. It's been an absolute pleasure.